Welcome to Art for All People. This is Lisa.
And Jayan.
We are interviewing today
Rhonna Del Rio-Ascolese.
Welcome. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I am an artist who works with a lot of recycled things. And I guess my background really is architecture, but I just stumbled upon art through my yoga practice.
Cool. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I actually started about 2 years ago, back in February 2011. I was going to the studio for about 6 months. I was just barely starting to feel my practice and falling in love with it. And they had this kind of like a program that it was the first time they're offering it for everyone. It's called the Yoga Challenge, 20 classes in 28 days. And I couldn't put my head around this concept of challenge in yoga, because I just saw yoga as just, you go and you love it and there's no challenge, it's just fun and you're in it, you know. But one of my amazing teacher kind of actually encouraged me to take it, and she said that maybe I would be ready for it. And I figured, okay, well, if she's, you know, encouraging it, it's probably something good about it. So I registered practically the last day to register, I think, and decided to take it on. But I figured if I'm gonna do this challenge, I should somewhat document it, you know, have fun with it. I don't know what I was gonna get at. Like, I wanted to get back to writing again, so I had collected recycled coffee filters, and I can choose it as a journal, write what I'm experiencing in this challenge day by day throughout the month of February.
Why coffee filters?
It happened to be in my kitchen already. I started collecting it 6 months prior to that because I didn't want to throw it away. It just looked really nice one night, and I decided to just collect it, and I tend to do that. I want to repurpose materials for something else. I didn't know what it was going to be for. I figured something to write on or something to do something with, or maybe even wrap presents with or whatnot. But as they collected, they started looking like a book or a pad. So then the thought of making it into a journal kind of came into my head.
So you thought, I'm doing this challenge,
so I'll take it out and I'll start writing on it. But I couldn't use words, like nothing. My thought was like, okay, after each class, go home and write what you feel and all this stuff that you felt during class. But I literally couldn't write words. And being that architecture is my background, I started doing doodles, you know, kind of, can I show you guys?
Yes, please, yes, love to.
So I started doing stick figures that I'm used to in my architecture projects. So this is the very first one.
The first one?
Very first one ever.
Wow.
Was just stick figures of how we would do architecture, you know, like to scale the building. You would draw these little stick figures just to see how big the building is. And so I started drawing myself on a yoga mat, and then the next day happened, and then the next day happened, and then still no words. And then just from that, it just progressed to all these different metaphors that started forming itself into a more, a really different expression than what I'm used to seeing in figure of people. And I just continued on the challenge, and next thing you know, towards the end of the challenge is just, it became a collection, and I continued even after the challenge, and I showed it to the yoga studio owner, and she welcomed it into the studio, and students can see it on display while practicing, and it just kind of took its own life.
What information did it have to tell you after you kind of channeled it, right?
I started feeling like it was the first time in my whole creative life, I should say, that when I was making it, I didn't look anywhere else. I didn't look at a model. I didn't flip through books to just do study cases of architecture. I didn't look at somebody standing to see what they look like, you know. It was the first time it was this. It was just...
You were focused in a different way.
It was like after an amazing class or accumulation of several amazing classes, you feel something inside and just, what is this? And then I just grabbed, and I was using colored pencils because that's what I'm used to in architecture. I would just grab a piece of recycled paper and put it there, and then it's the first time that it's hard. You're just being the conduit of what you're feeling in here, and it just comes into your the tip of your pencil, and you're just kind of at the same time amazed by what's coming out because you don't know if you could redo that form. You know, like I'll stop and I'm like, how did I do that angle? How did that hand actually look like it's doing what it should look like? You know, you let go because you're so tired from you know, in class you exhaust your body. This is what the teachers always tell us. You exhaust your body, so you're just so open to anything. You're not worried about the world or society or what other person is doing next to you. You're so exhausted and open at the same time that you just let it out, you know, from here to here with no interruptions of expectations and judgments.
There was an unknown and a surprise in the process.
A lot of it, I finished one metaphor, I'll stare at it, and I'm like, wow, it's like, where'd you come from?
What was happening at your life at that moment in time, like parallel to it?
Probably the parallel would be, you know, my daughter was 2 years ago, so about going into 4 years old. And I had, you know, consciously decided I wanted to stay home. So I left architecture in a way. And I think it was, she's getting older, so I'm trying to kind of find out where I'm going next. So I think just trying to figure out you as a mother going back into the world, or just also loving yoga and just starting to be aware of what's in here and loving it and accepting it and embracing it. And the awareness, I guess you would say, pulls that out of you. You know, I'm not drawing anymore. I'm not thinking, does this look right? You know, it's just the awareness that it's okay. That's your art. Nobody can judge you if it's beautiful or not. Nobody can tell you, oh, dude, it's too dark or too soft. And you're just like, God, I'm free. You know, you're just free.
Wow.
To express whatever is happening in there. It's like a filter, kind of funny.
It's a filter.
It's a filter paper.
What, like, if you could describe the feeling, like, you know, you said it's just coming through you. What does that feel like, or can you describe it?
It's hard to describe something. It's a feeling.
It's a feeling.
Yeah, it's not something that.
Could you do time, space? Where's time and space?
While I'm drawing it, like it goes away. It literally just, you fall into this new dimension of creativity that's not, no borders, no limits, no, and then you follow it with a grin, like how amazing this feels, like freedom to just, yeah, that's what it feels right, you know. It's not a form, it's almost like the, you know, if you have an abstract art versus traditional or whatnot. Abstract allows you to kind of conform something, form something that is unique to you, unique to your soul. And it's like nobody can, so that's why there's no judgment, because you let go of what people might think, because who can even judge it when it's really a unique you in it, you know, it's your own, it's just an expression, and everybody would have a different expression about it, and that's okay, because you know what expression it makes for you, you know.
So you're suggesting that anybody can do this? Anybody can do this.
Art is for all people.
It's just letting go of just expectations on yourself.
It takes a lot of courage, right?
Yeah, but when it's happening, you don't know that you're putting on that courage. It's just in a bliss. You know, I think that's what the yoga practice for me does to me, because they just put you in this state of accepting who you are and just being free and just it's like the most sacred moment of the day. It's like this mat, and then you carry that over to the world, and then how do you carry your life like you would on your mat? It's the same expression. How do you carry that back to your art or your creativity? It's all the same frame of reference, except different scale or medium. You know, how do you, when you're holding a pose in yoga, you can either fall, or you can like beat yourself up for not getting to the pose, or you can just let the stroke go off the paper, and it doesn't matter. You can fall off your mat, you know. Nobody's nobody cares, you know, they're thinking the same thing, you know, like, it's really the only space I can find myself free. You know, and also the community, I think, helps when you feel everybody's in their own journey. But there's like a connectivity within the studio or within that, you know, class. If you're tuned in, then you start to sense people's positive energy also, and then it kind of goes in through you too. And it's just, it's hard to put words to it.
Yeah, that's great.
So how does healing fit into all of this yoga and art practice?
It starts to make you feel. It's like when you tap in the feeling. I mean, our emotions are all tied to feelings, right? I mean, and when we're healing, it's all about emotions, whether it's joy, anguish, happiness, gratitude, to regrets, to resentment or whatnot. Those are all emotions and they're feelings. So I think that when we tap into feelings by creating feelings, it's slowly letting that seep out of us.
Feeling is healing.
Yeah, exactly. Feeling is, I always been saying this since it kind of came to me one day. I'm staring at my art and I'm like, what am I doing? You know, because I'm used to like doing the architecture. Oh yeah, you're a designer. Oh, Rhonna's an artist now. But I'm like thinking, I don't know if it's just that. I think it's, I'm not drawing or painting. I'm feeling it. You know, I'm just feeling away, and it just kind of came to my head like, that's what it is. When I'm looking at all these metaphors, it's the feelings in that form that others could relate to, but not the same each time. It's unique to their own soul as they see it. You know, it's like their own mix of what's happening in their own heart will communicate to them what that piece looks like.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, basically you're saying art is for all people. You just have to feel when you're doing it.
Yeah.
And then the healing arises.
It happens on its own. Like it's because when you start to do art and you're doing it without the thought of somebody's gonna judge it, you're letting yourself free, right? So then when you carry that, when you leave your art, your canvas, or whatever you're working on, and then you walk out into the world, if you have a remnants of that, then you start to feel free too and not worry about what other people are thinking, because it really doesn't matter, you know?
That's beautiful, yeah. Why do you think, the exhibition that you're in is called Bridge to the Soul at USC, which is huge. We have 26 artists, and it's all about arts and healing. Why do you feel that art and yoga is a bridge to the soul?
The word bridge is so powerful. It feels like if I was to put some sort of word that the world could grasp in meaning, a bridge, it connects two independent things. And I feel like doing yoga, it starts to open the gates to get onto that bridge, to find yourself in that creative world that's always in there. But what's missing, I believe, nowadays, just in society, is that bridge. There's all this stuff happening inside you, but people are afraid to cross, right? And some people are willing to just like leap of faith, right? Yeah. But some people, I believe most people, I think including myself, needed that bridge. And I think that's what the connection between yoga and artists. Yoga exhausts the body and lets you tune in, where all this wealth of creativity's always been there. It just needs to be tapped. Like when you have like a sore shoulder, if somebody touches it, or like just put their finger on it, you feel alive, right? You feel like, oh, I needed that, right? So it's the same thing. I think in yoga it taps in. That just needs to be woken up a little bit.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah, no, good, amazing information. So what's the future hold for this project? We have a thing called Yogart, which is amazing. So we're totally on your map. But what's the future for you in the project?
Well, I definitely feel the call to continue, and I feel like it needs to be shared. I'd like to be able to connect with others who are maybe having a little tap that they need to find their creative self, because I know so many friends and just strangers saying, I've always wanted to get back to art, or I've always wanted to pick up a pencil and draw. I feel like I could, but oh my gosh, I can't. I want to connect with these people and say, it's there, you know, you have the available resources around you, but it takes that first initial step on the mat, or step on opening, you know, just accepting that it is possible, that it is in there. We don't forget when we were 2-3 years old that we picked up that crayon and doodled and say, look mom, you know, and you're just so happy, and it doesn't matter what it looks like, and your reaction to it is what the reaction brings also. It's like your mom's so excited because you're just so excited, and you don't care if that looks like a certain thing, but you're just happy, right? So it's always in us. It's just, so I think that's what I would like to do, is to keep on connecting with others that could also tap in and be on their own journey, because everyone's gonna have their own unique.
Why do you feel that in our society it's just not encouraged? Like, I know I've met so many people that I haven't picked up a crayon since I've been 2, and you're like, why? I mean, we're art advocates, so it's like, why not, you know? So why do you think that it's not, you know, why do people need permission almost?
Yeah, why do people? I think as we get out into the world, beginning when we start school, we start to, as kids, we start to hear the you shouldn't, you could, you can't. So it just kind of starts to dilute all this willingness to be yourself, because then you start to be compared, the grades being compared, everything starts to be compared around you. So then I think we tap into that expectation from that point, you know, and we there's a story, you guys probably know this already, one thing I love about my yoga classes is the teachers would share stories about certain things that makes total sense. And one of the stories that one of my favorite is how there's this young child who asked her mom, who's a professor in college, like, what do you do? And you heard this one, and she said, well, I teach college students how to draw and be creative. And the child is all like, you mean they forgot? And it's true, we forget. Why do we forget? So the going back in to that inner child, I think, is the key to going back to the creative soul, you know. And I, for my own experience, I believe, and I'm sure there's other ways, but for my own experience, I believe yoga was my bridge, you know, to a different expression. Because my architecture was a totally different expression, full of expectation and guidelines and all these rules. And for this journey, my only rule is the no rule.
The no rule?
The no rule, finally, to just feel as it feels right and stop when it doesn't feel right, and it's okay. And you go back to it when it calls on you again. And you don't have to finish the art right there, because then you're putting expectation on yourself. You know,
yeah, it seems like it's wonderment is happening in the yoga and art process.
Yeah.
And I think, do you want to teach workshops, and do you have a film coming out? And
yeah, there's actually a film that we worked on, because I noticed in the last few art shows that I've had, my purpose in the art show is not individual painting, but what the whole process that got me there is about. And I noticed that I would talk to each viewer individually my story, and I felt like it was missing, because you have all this crowd of people, right? And you have like a few minutes, you don't want to tie them to your painting, you want them to explore, so you're trying to rush through the story. It just didn't feel authentic, or it didn't feel as organic to talk about with a cup of coffee with a friend feeling, you know? So I collaborated with a couple of very talented people to create this film that tells the story of filter art and how it came about for me through my yoga practice.
so you're calling it filter art?
Yeah, calling it filter art, and it just ties into what I'm trying to do, is filtering out that potent thing that gets left behind from all this expectation, tying it back, you know, to, instead of sharing it, you feel like, oh, I might get judged by that. What would that person think about me if I even talk about that? Or what would that person think if I use that color or that shape or that texture? And just letting it out, because that's the most potent thing that people can actually heal from. You know, you don't know who you're going to inspire with just one freedom of stroke, you know. So that's filter art.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So in one word, what does art mean to you?
My soul.
Soul.
It's the soul, literally the soul.
So basically, yoga and art is almost like a nourishment for it's almost like a feeding or for the soul.
And I see how it's also helping fellow yogis in my studio, how they would individually sometimes just share with me what they felt in the class, looking at the art one way, and it's resonating for them, their own interpretation, which I love hearing about, because a million eyes can look at it and have a million interpretation. And my goal is if I can evoke emotion, and I've seen it happen. Some of my teachers have cried. I'm gonna get emotional. Then you're tapped in.
Wow.
That's huge.
So it's like if you can evoke with others, then you're doing something different for the world.
So you're really transforming the world.
I feel like that's such a big thing to understand, but for me, I know I'm transforming myself.
Yeah.
And I think we're almost a mirror of our surroundings. So if I'm healing myself, I believe that people that I love and around me that I talk to can benefit from that as well. So art literally is healing.
It is amazing. Have you seen like people that you do yoga with do the art, like your process? And can you share a story with us?
We're hoping to do a workshop. I'm hoping to do a workshop with my current teacher, because I've gone through different teachers, and I love all my teachers, but some schedule have switched, so I have my current regular who actually revived the art for me, because it actually stopped for a few months when I lost my regular schedule and I couldn't resonate. I was still going to yoga, I still love it, but for some reason I just couldn't resonate as much as I did. But now back in a regular class with Lauren Extra, she understands how healing it is for me and how it's affecting the community. So we're hoping to put together a workshop where other fellow yogis have asked about too, and asking me how the process is, and hoping to tap into and I know they can. It's just the platform to, like just a goal to have that in your mind when you do the class. That's kind of maybe what you're trying to do. Like when I wanted to journal, I didn't know it'd come into drawings, but just putting a platform of what you want out of your practice, outside of just the sweat and the perfect poses. It's not about those. It's how do you carry it to your life and to the world.
Yeah, that's amazing. Any more questions, Jaylon?
I guess one last question would be one peak moment, if you just intuitively think of it right now. What it does yoga art? When was that light literally turned on?
Oh, it's still happening. It's not a one-time thing. And sometimes it takes a few classes for that light to come through. You know, the accumulation of classes, not just like, oh, I got one amazing class and, boom. Sometimes it's the work you put into it. It's the repeating of the classes and being in the practice. And sometimes it would take me 5 classes or a week before I go back to do something creative again. So I'm not sure if I can point it out to one instant moment.
But you can say that this is a practice. This
It's
is
a
your
practice.
daily practice.
Exactly. It's almost the same thing as practicing gratitude every day. And it's the same thing as practicing, committing to nurturing yourself. So yoga does that for me. I've decided that when I started feeling good about myself, I also noticed how I am to the people I love. So then I committed to myself that, hey, the more I nurture myself, it's actually helping. So I'm going to commit to replanting, refueling myself so that I have more to give, you know. So it's literally the practice and just staying in the course. And when I got back, when I realized it, I think I remember I wrote a quote to myself and I said, it's no longer a challenge, it's a decision
Beautiful.
to nurture yourself.
Very inspiring. Thank you.